I'm glad you enjoyed it so much. I've honestly never experienced anything like that before, never even been that close to a woman, let alone shared a moment the way we did today. She raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. Really? That's hard to believe, she replied softly. You seemed so natural, your hands, the way you moved, the confidence in your touch. Especially your fingers. What? What about them? I wasn't sure what she was about to say, and I worried she might scold me for being too bold. She went on calmly, you teased me with your hands, but you never tried to go any further than that. I hesitated. Anne, that's a good thing? Yes, the way you moved, twirling, adjusting, and exploring, felt incredibly good, she said softly. It was a little uncomfortable for just a moment, but then you would change what you were doing, and all of my attention shifted. I barely noticed anything else after that. I was a bit worried, I admitted. I didn't want to cause you any pain. That would have completely spoiled the moment. You touched me in a way that felt unexpectedly right, careful, attentive, and thoughtful. Every gesture seemed guided by consideration rather than impulse. I was honestly surprised by your restraint. I had assumed you might rush or push things further, simply because that's what I'd always been told to expect. Instead, you showed patience and respect, and that meant more to me than I can easily explain. No, not me. I would never go anywhere unless I was invited. She reached for me again, pulling me into an even tighter embrace than before. Thank you so much. You were incredibly kind and thoughtful. No one has ever treated me with such care and respect before. I will always remember what you did for me today. What I intended as a small gesture of appreciation turned out to be something meaningful for me as well. She glanced at her watch and said, we need to get going. I'll get on the bus first. You wait a couple of minutes before boarding as well. Sit as far back as you can, and remember, no looking at me. I remember, I assured her. All right then, she said softly. Let's go. We slipped back inside the school from the shed without being noticed. She smiled at me once more and then headed off toward her bus. I made my way to the bathroom to wash my hands. Out of simple curiosity, I lifted them briefly toward my face, trying to catch the faint trace of her scent before it faded. I wasn't quite sure what to make of the lingering scent. It was strong, but not unpleasant. There was even a faint hint of sweetness to it. Curious, I paused for a moment, surprised by how unexpected the impression was, both familiar and strange at the same time. After a second's thought, I shrugged it off, turned on the tap, and washed my hands thoroughly. With that small moment behind me, I left the washroom and headed out to catch the bus. Terry was seated near the front of the bus. As I boarded, I deliberately looked away from her and walked straight to the very last seat. I kept my head down for the most part, though I did catch her glancing back at me a few times, smiling each time she did. It seemed that it was perfectly acceptable for her to look at me, but not the other way around. I considered that idea for only a brief moment before deciding that if that was how she wanted it, I was more than willing to go along with it. It never really occurred to me until I was back home and saw her unclothed that I began thinking about what my hands had, and had not, experienced. She had a natural, softly shaped patch of hair above her most intimate area, while Terry, by contrast, was completely smooth, almost startlingly so. It struck me then that Terry was clearly ahead of her time in that regard, embracing a style that was far from common back then. How was your first day of school? She asked. It was fine, I replied. Did you meet anyone? Make any friends? Not really, I said. I mostly kept to myself and tried to stay unnoticed. She nodded. All right then, go wash up for dinner. Oh, and you have a phone message. I left it on the counter by the telephone. I picked up the note as I walked toward the phone. Call 5558855 after 7 p.m. I paused, staring at the number. For a moment, I wondered if it might be Terry's. Almost immediately, I dismissed the idea. After all the warnings she had given me, about not looking at her, not acknowledging her, it seemed impossible. Trying to shake the thought from my mind, I turned toward the kitchen. "When's supper, Mom?" I asked. "I'm really hungry." Mom, Dad, my sister, and I sat down together for supper. Mom had prepared meatloaf and homemade scalloped potatoes au gratin, and each of our plates was topped with a small bowl of salad. She firmly believed that every good meal should begin with a salad. An assortment of salad dressings sat in the center of the table. We each had our favorites, but it was always nice to change things up once in a while. Nearby was a bag of croutons, a shaker of bacon bits, and a small bowl of grated cheese. After all, if you're going to eat a salad, you might as well make it enjoyable. Completing the spread was a large bowl of corn niblets with a serving spoon, along with a plate of celery and carrot sticks. The table was full, warm, and inviting, a generous and comforting family meal. After we finished our salads, my sister carried the bowls to the kitchen, rinsed them, and set them neatly in the sink. Mom's meatloaf was one of my favorite main dishes, and her homemade scalloped potatoes were, without question, my favorite way to enjoy potatoes. Soon our plates were filled, and we ate happily, savoring every bite. As we enjoyed the meal, we made sure to tell Mom how much we appreciated her effort and the wonderful food she had prepared. My dad asked, "So how was your first day of high school, Nick?" "It was okay, I guess," I replied. I spent most of the day figuring out where all the classrooms were and trying to remember the names of my teachers and the other students I met. My sister chimed in, "You can barely remember where our house is, let alone a big school with tons of rooms." The rest of us ignored her comment. "What were the teachers like?" my mom asked. "Like teachers," I answered, with a hint of sarcasm in my voice. She raised an eyebrow. "Seriously, though, how were they?" "Most of them are older, but there are a couple of younger ones," I said. "They are all men except for the English teacher. My history teacher, Mr. Kurtz, is also my homeroom teacher." "What's homeroom?" my sister asked. She was still in public school and didn't have a homeroom period. "Homeroom is where you go at the beginning of the school day," I explained. "They take attendance there, and any announcements are broadcast over the classroom's PA speaker. Once the announcements are finished, you have 5 minutes to get to your first class of the day." "How many classes do you have in one day?" she asked. Since she attended public school, she had the same schedule every day. "Usually 7 classes a day," I replied, "unless you have a spare period. On those days, you only have 6 classes. Each class lasts 40 minutes, and you get 5 minutes to move on to the next one. There are 4 days in a high school cycle," I explained. On the 5th day, the schedule starts over again at day 1. Each classroom has the day number written in the top right-hand corner of the blackboard, and they also announce the day number during morning announcements. And just to make things even more confusing, lunch period and 4th class switch places every other day. "Wow, that's a lot of stuff to remember," my sister said. Mom and Dad both looked at me and explained that things were much simpler when they were in high school. They had the same courses every day, and lunch was always at the same time. And, of course, they couldn't resist adding that familiar line about having to walk 5 miles to school, uphill both ways. We ate in relative silence for a while before Dad finally spoke. "I hear you have a telephone message," he said casually, "and that it was left by a female." "What?" I turned and looked at Mom, who was smiling like the cat that had swallowed the canary. "Why didn't you tell me it was a girl who left the message?" I asked. She shrugged, still smiling. "It must have slipped my mind," she replied innocently. "I'm sorry." I could tell just by looking at her that she wasn't sorry in the slightest. In fact, she was still smiling, though not quite as broadly as before, and had turned her head toward the kitchen window, clearly trying to hide her expression. She had always had a bit of a mischievous streak in her. "Why would a girl leave a phone message for you?" my dad asked, raising an eyebrow. "I have no idea," I replied sharply, feeling my face grow warm. "Nick has a girlfriend." "Nick has a girlfriend," my sister sang out teasingly, clearly enjoying the moment. "I do not," I protested. "I don't even know any other girls in this town."